recording. Click on your auto, click on this and get that going. Record.
Shan and Jeff, can you hear us?
And then wait for him to tell you you're live. Okay. You're live.
All right.
Shan, can you hear us?
Turn this up. Okay. All right, I will call this to order. My name is Anthony Jenkins. The time is 6:04 p.m. on Wednesday, September 16th, and we're here at Vineyard City Hall. Tim has offered to give an invocation to get us started, and then we'll move into an open session. Tim?
Thank you. Our Father in heaven, we're very thankful this evening for this opportunity that we have to be here in this capacity. We're grateful for the trust placed in us, and we pray that through the deliberations of our meeting tonight, we will be able to observe those things that need to be seen clearly, that we will ask those questions that will help us to make right decisions, and that we will move forward to help this community to progress and be strong. We're thankful for the opportunity we have to live here, grateful for those who have come before, and we pray that we will do all that we can to make this community strong and healthy and vibrant through our actions and also in our efforts as citizens. We are grateful to live in this country for the freedoms that we enjoy. We are thankful for those who help to preserve those freedoms. These things we pray and thank thee for tonight in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Tim. All right, just for the record, our voting members tonight will be myself, Anthony, Tim, Amber, Shan, and Jeff. So all of us will be voting or taking any action tonight. Anyone else is welcome to provide feedback and input. And we'll move right on to number 3, the open session. So this is an opportunity for anyone online or in person to share any thoughts about items that are not on the agenda. So we'll open up to open session and see if there's any. There's none here in the room. Let's see if there's any online. All right, not seeing any. Morgan, do you see any?
Nope, I don't see any hands raised.
All right, we will move on from the open session. We do not have any minutes for review and approval. Brian, I'm assuming we'll probably have some next meeting. Okay, great. It's always nice to have no more than a couple to go through. That's great. All right, we'll jump right into business item number 5.1. This is a public hearing and consideration of amendments to the Vineyard zoning ordinance to add medical cannabis and pharmacy provisions. Morgan, I'll let you go in there.
So Shan or Jeff, could one of you just say something? I want to see if I can hear you. Shan's saying she can't hear anyone. Can you hear me? Jeff? Don? One of you guys. I don't know. Make sure everything's on.
Okay, well, hopefully we're able to work through the audio there. We do have a quorum here to vote if needs be, but we'll let Jeff and Shan try to connect their audio.
Okay.
They can hear some, but not you, Morgan. I don't know
Yeah,
what
it's
the difference
weird.
would be.
Here, well, I'll make sure to speak into the mic, so hopefully they can hear me. But we're getting picked up in the meeting recorder. Okay, so we do have 3 here on the. Looks like we have Jeff and Shan, and I don't know if there's anyone else on. It looks like we have some staff members as well. So what I wanted to do is just kind of run through some of these amendments to our code. This is specifically to 3 sections really. The district use table, which is the table that contains the uses and correlates those with the different districts. So what you can do where. And then there's the definition section of our code, which is taking the actual new uses and providing definitions so we know what they are. And then our development standards, which would apply development standards to medical cannabis uses. So I'll share my screen and see if I can take you through this. Okay, this is what I need. Try that again. Okay, great. Yep. So we can see that on Zoom. Let me scroll down. I can move this guy. Okay, so this is our first section of changes. This is the district use table. So that's 1512.050. So that's where it falls within our code. Now, just to give you kind of some background, in 2018, the state provides some allowances through the legislature for medical cannabis production and for pharmaceutical uses. So this is just for a medical allowance only. We do have a company right now, Health Elevated or Life Elevated, which is up in the industrial district off of 1750. And they are in the process of applying for the state permit to allow them production of medical cannabis. Possibly in the future, they may do a storefront to add a pharmaceutical use as well. So in this district, you'll see that cannabis production establishment was added, and it was added as a P8 in both the manufacturing and the FOI district. So it limits it to those districts. What the 8 refers to, let's pull that up real quick. The 8 is the note at the bottom. You shall meet all licensing requirements as required by Utah State Code and conform to section 1534-210, cannabis production establishments and medical cannabis pharmacies, development standards of this title. So we do have some development standards, so that provides the reference between the two. And then, in addition to that, we have a pharmacy, which is allowed in our retail districts. The reason why I added pharmacy is currently we don't have just a standard pharmaceutical use in the city. And I've had people who are pharmacies that have wanted to come in, but we don't have a use category. So it's important because they are two separate uses under state code that we define those differently. So I actually broke them out as separate uses. So a pharmacy and then a medical cannabis pharmacy. So the pharmacy is allowed just in the retail districts, more kind of around the RMU, RC districts, and the medical cannabis pharmacy is allowed only in the FOI.
Morgan, can I ask, so the production in the FOI area makes sense. Why would we treat the location of the pharmacies different here?
Sure. So
the logic behind that?
No, that's a great question. The idea was to, with this type of use, to come in just to allow it, and then if we got a request to do a pharmaceutical use, medical cannabis use in the in like the south part of the city, like around the megaplex or one of those retail districts, then we could go through an amendment process to allow it. But the idea was to kind of bring it in slowly. So to put it up where it's far away from residential, because they do have distancing requirements, and I have to look at those up. But I believe it's from churches, parks, schools, and residential. It might be anywhere from like 1,000 feet, maybe even more. So there are some distance requirements. So we felt like this was the easiest, best spot. It was kind of far away and from a residential. And one of the things that I heard from one of the medical cannabis chains that is coming to Utah is that they actually, a lot of those don't want to be in a standard retail environment because a lot of their patients don't like the stigma that goes with it, and so they want more privacy when they get their medication. They don't want,
Yeah, I'm just thinking
their
if we have
neighbors
kind of
or
like a mini medical cluster, like we're kind of seeing already with dental, pediatrics, and a pharmacy comes in. yeah, just because it's a different type of medicine, I wouldn't want someone to have to drive all over. But yeah,
Right, right.
understand the approach. That helps. Thanks.
Yeah. So that's the idea. I mean, I'm, from the department standpoint, staff, we're not opposed to that. And so if that was something that the city wanted us to explore, we're happy to do so. But we felt like if we had a medical cannabis pharmacy that wanted to come in, then we could process a code amendment at that time
Understood.
and deal with it at that
Just
time.
want to add or question. We're not perpetuating the stigma with this, right? Making it secret in some way in the secret section of town.
No, I mean, that wasn't the idea. We do have the state code distance requirements. And so it wasn't us like having, it was honestly, it's the easiest place to allow the medical cannabis
Because there's clearly
pharmacy.
no conflicts up there.
Yeah, there's no
Right.
conflict. So at least it provides the use and allows it within the city, and it's non-controversial. So it's a good way to get it in place. And then if if there was a desire to put it down in the more of the standard retail district, then we would just have to look at it at that time.
Okay.
So yep, that is what those ones do. And then let me scroll down and show you the other two sections that are changing. So we added that note, and then this is the definitions section. And then what I did with the definitions is simply I referred to the state code, because the state code has their definitions section, and they're just like standard. They meet what the state approved when they adopted the law. So that's for the cannabis production establishment, and then for the pharmacy, I think I just put that under the P's with a comma. Yep. So the pharmacy medical cannabis also is just a state code definition. So we don't necessarily need to adopt the definition, but we just would reference and as defined by the state, and that way we don't have any conflicts with the state. And then our pharmacy, the standard one, this is a really common definition that I found in a few different cities. Pharmacy, any place where prescription drugs are dispensed, but does not include the dispensing of medical cannabis or associated products. So I kept that separate. There may be a time in the future, from what we've heard from one of the lobbyists, that medical cannabis may be allowed to be sold in a standard pharmacy, because they are treated like prescription drugs in the sense that they're not taxed. And so legislatively, they're treated the same. But right now, they're required to be sold in a specific medical cannabis pharmacy. But that may open up as things go on in the future with future legislative amendments. And if that does, then we would come in here and make an amendment.
So a question has come to my mind regarding the difference between pharmacy and medical cannabis pharmacy. We may not be in the position to be able to answer that this evening, but I know that in order to be a pharmacist, you need to go through certain kinds of training, usually college degrees and certification, state boards, and so on. Do we know what the qualifications are to dispense medical cannabis as a pharmacy?
Yeah, so if you want to be a medical cannabis pharmacy, there are state code requirements. You have to have a permit for it, but to be like the person, like the professional dispensing, I don't know what those qualifications are. I know that Bev and Justin, who are part of the Life Elevated, would be happy if you guys would like kind of a refresher on that. They've worked pretty aggressively with the with lobbyists and with the legislature in getting the code defined. So I could reach out to them and maybe even just email you what the standards are, or I could even bring them in and they could do presentation.
It's a question that has come to mind just to try to understand the difference in certifications required, since we're talking about pharmacies.
Those are good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll look into it. And if you're okay, Chair, I can just send the Planning Commission an email with what we find.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And then we have our development standards. So I looked around a few other cities, and these were very common ones that other cities are using. So we wanted to have just some minimum development standards for this use. So I'll just kind of read through these. So you have kind of a health and safety category. There shall be no emissions of dust, fumes, vapors, odors, or waste into the environment from any facility where growing, processing, or testing of cannabis occurs. And cannabis production established shall meet the land use requirements of the zone in which it is located. And the pharmacies are very similar. No cannabis products shall be visible from the outside of a medical cannabis pharmacy. The building square footage dedicated to the retail use of the medical cannabis pharmacy shall not exceed 25% of the building or development in which it is located. And medical cannabis pharmacies shall meet the land use requirements for the zone in which it is located.
So let me just stop there.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't have a dedicated, like if there were a pharmacy that came in, you can't
Not,
just.
not on
only
the
a quarter
FOI,
of it?
because the FOI right now, if you remember, it has the retail limitation on it. And
Okay.
the retail limit, because we don't want really large retail establishments up there, because you do have trucks backing out, you do have, it's industrial. And so the idea is we've allowed it like some showrooms for like Bella Lash had like
So right
a
now,
small
this
showroom.
pretty much only accommodates the production with a front retail.
Yeah, and that's
portion. Okay.
and that's most of what I've heard people are wanting. Like they want their warehouse. So the warehouse where they, maybe they store everything back there, we wouldn't count that. It would be basically the area where the customers are going. That space has to be less than 25%.
So again, if there were a request for a standalone pharmacy or something like that,
yeah,
that would be
it
a
would.
code,
Yeah.
code revision.
If we did that, we would have to probably do it through a site plan and not allow for the entire development 25%, because we wrote it so it's a building or development, and so we may be able to kind of work on that if someone came in with a few buildings, but one of them was standalone. So, but the overall intent, and that's just from this code. It's not really this use, but we limit all retail uses to 25% in that area, and so we wanted to treat the pharmacy use, which is the retail storefront, kind of the same as we treat other retail uses.
That makes sense.
So it's not treating them any differently. It's keeping it the same.
Okay, when I first read it, it was like, oh, they build a building, then they can't use
Yeah,
75%
right,
of it.
right, yeah, exactly. And then there's licensing requirements through the state, and the city will require a business license. That's standard. We just put it in here, so it's a kind of a catch when they go through it. Location has it designated in the district use table, so the FOI and the M. And then if any city regulation regarding cannabis production, establishment, medical cannabis pharmacies in conflict with Utah state code takes precedent. So that's an important thing to realize is you can't overly regulate this. I mean, the state has a lot of licensing requirements. So they regulate these pretty strongly. But we can do some small things, because like the district, the 25% limitation, because that was already a standard in our code. So we're able to apply that. That is everything for that I have. This is a public hearing. So I don't know if we have any members of the public. Looks like we have some staff members on. But
We'll
Yeah,
open
whatever
it
you
up. Can I get a motion to move into a public hearing?
I motion to move into a public hearing.
All right, thanks, Amber.
I second it, Tim.
Tim with the second. We'll do a roll call. Shan, if you can unmute, we'll come to you in a moment. Amber?
Aye.
Tim?
Aye.
Anthony's aye. Jeff?
Aye.
Shan? Are you on?
So let me just tell you kind of what's happening. That's why I came in here. No one on the audio is hearing what's happening here.
That's weird, really.
Yeah, so we couldn't hear you speaking at all this whole
Okay.
meeting, Morgan.
Morgan, if
So
you...
Chris got on. He was commenting too. He couldn't hear, so that's why I just came here.
Thank you for coming on and letting us know, because this is important as a public hearing.
So I don't know that the
Let's-
public can make any comments right now because they won't be able to hear that.
Yeah, Morgan, perhaps you could put in the chat window, call for any public comments, and we'll give a minute or two here to make sure that they know that even if they can't hear the audio, they can certainly ask any questions in the chat.
You could see what was on the screen. We could hear each other.
Yeah, it might be on your end. Is there, or do you have something that's muted?
I don't know. Let's see.
Because
Yeah, I don't know.
we could hear
I'm-
each other on the call.
Is your mic
You
muted?
guys could hear.
We could hear each other, like when someone would get on the call, or like Shan asked at one point, "Can you hear me?" And I heard her, but the feed that's coming from here is not producing any audio, and it doesn't say muted though, on the Zoom end at least.
Did you change something, Brian?
I just unchecked something that said desktop audio that was muted, but I don't know if that made any difference.
Check the chat because we were chatting in there. you might see if someone can.
Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
That's why I came in with my headphones on. I was on the Zoom on my phone in case it came through and I could hear it.
Can any of you guys hear us on Zoom? You know it might be. I do have some headphones, but they're all the way up in my office. But it's not on. It's on my computer speaker. But sometimes it can conflict. So if you guys can just give me a minute, I'll run upstairs.
Hey, can you before you run up there? I think you sent that note to Jeff privately.
Oh, just Jeff?
Yeah, can you do it to everyone, and that way it'll give them a moment.
Why don't you just grab your headphones?
Yeah, just grab the headphones, run back down. Thanks, man.
Yeah, see
that
right
to
here. It
everyone?
says
Oh,
to
to-
Jeff, so change it to
Everyone.
everyone. And then, let's see, that's Sullivan's mic there. That's picking up audio, you can see up there.
Yeah, it
it's
wasn't
weird.
muted on the Zoom app.
Strange. Okay, we'll just give this a minute.
That's so weird. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, for the record, no one else is here in the room, and we've got Morgan, Brian, Chris, Don, and Shan and Sullivan on there. So I don't believe there are any members of the public outside of the Planning Commission and staff, for the record.
Can you guys,
It's alive!
oh my
Oh my
gosh,
gosh.
what the heck? This is way up my office. And it wasn't connected, I had it on the speakers. Isn't that weird? All right.
The
sorry,
Bluetooth
guys.
betrayed
My
you.
headphones jacked the meeting up. I wanted to blame Brian. Brian, you jerk.
We'll send Liz a note saying we missed her already. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, I saw that. I told him to change it.
Okay. All right. So we are in a public hearing right now. Just want to give a moment to anyone on the Zoom call.
I need you to start over.
Can you mute Chris? I'm just kidding.
I can kick it.
We are in a public hearing, so anyone on the Zoom call is welcome to ask any questions. We'll give just another 30 seconds here, and if there aren't any, then
Well, Chair, and I am
we'll make a
happy
motion to close.
If Shan would like, I can do it. Just
Yeah, we certainly can.
do like
Yeah,
a 1 minute.
yeah. Let's do a quick 1 minute overview, and again, anyone that's listening that has any questions, please type those in or speak up after Morgan finishes his little overview, as we are in a public hearing right now.
All right, so,
Hey, wait, Morgan,
You got it?
Anthony is coming in through your speakers in your computer, and so it's really, really light. If there's any discussion on the commission, it's really, really quiet
okay.
when anybody that isn't right in front of your computer speaks. Just letting you know,
Oh,
just
right.
as you're.
Going to your headphone microphones?
Yeah, I mean, it should be going through my microphone.
That's fine. We'll let you do your
Okay, here, okay, I'll do the overview, and then we'll just have people like scream. My apologies. All right, the state in 2018 passed a law that allows medical cannabis, and so what this ordinance does is it provides the allowance through our local regulations. It does two uses. The first is cannabis production establishment, and it allows those in the FOI and the M district, so on the north side of the city. The cannabis production facility is the actual growing, the indoor growing of medical cannabis. And then it allows for medical cannabis pharmacy, and a medical cannabis pharmacy is the storefront end of that, the retail component. And it allows that in just the FOI and limits it to 25% of the square foot of the building. So it treats it the same way as we treat other retail uses in the FOI district. So that's the north part of the city. We felt it was important to adopt a pharmacy, just a standard pharmacy use, because we don't have one now, and that's a different use than a medical cannabis pharmacy. So we're adopting that, and that puts, like your Walgreens type uses in our standard retail districts. And then stop me if you have any questions on any of this. So this is the definition section, so we provided some definitions. They reference state code because the state code already has a definition. So our feeling was if the state changes their definition, we don't want to have to change ours, so we just reference theirs for both cannabis uses. And then pharmacies, so the medical cannabis pharmacy also references the state definitions. And then pharmacy use is any place where prescription drugs are dispensed but does not include the dispensing of medical cannabis or associated products. And then we adopted development standards for medical cannabis uses. Basically what they do is it treats them very similar to light manufacturing. So these are a lot of the same standards that we have now, but you're not allowed to emit dust, fumes, vapor, odors, or waste into the environment where there's any growing of cannabis, and it's required to meet all zoning requirements. For the pharmacies, no products can be visible from the outside of a medical cannabis pharmacy, and then the building square footage is limited to 25%. There are licensing requirements through the city and through the state. The state regulates medical cannabis uses very tightly. And so we are kind of limited in doing a lot more than that, but we do have these development standards so that applicants can see the city regulation at the front end. And then I think that's pretty much it. So it references state code as well. Well, that's all I have. So if there's any, sorry, Shannon, that was pretty quick, but if you have any questions.
No,
I'm
I've
happy
read
to-
it. It's
Okay,
good.
great.
We're good.
All right, so we are in a public hearing right now. Sorry if sounds like I'm yelling. I want to make sure they can hear me at least a little bit. If Morgan, can you see if there's any comments? If not, we'll look for a motion to move out of a public hearing and then discuss as a commission.
Okay, I'm not seeing any hands. So Anthony just asked if there were any comments for the public hearing. So if you do, you can raise your hand, or there's only a few of us, just start speaking. Okay, looks like we're good.
All right, could I get a motion to move out of the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to move out of the public hearing.
Thanks, Jeff. Do I have a second?
I second it. Tim?
Tim with the second. So we'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Aye.
Anthony's aye. Tim?
Aye.
Amber?
Aye.
And Shan?
Hi.
All right, so we are now out of the public hearing. So as a commission, we've got a recommendation from staff to send this on to the council as proposed here. Any questions or concerns or changes that you'd like to see?
So
I'm sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
Go ahead, Tim.
I just have an informational question. Now, Life Elevated is currently there. They're a business that's operating in the city. And they are handling cannabis now, is that true?
No, they're doing hemp CBD, right? That's what they're-
Yeah. So they get in, and Amber was on the. So if you can remember the term, but they get these large bags, and it's it's the marijuana plant, but it's without the THC component, and so then they use that, they process that, right? Am I correct on that? They process that and then extract the CBD from there.
Okay, so they're processing now, and they're extracting now.
Right.
And then they're selling that to, where does that then go?
So that they have products, so it'll be, and I don't know if it sounded like they officially weren't selling their products right now, but they're getting their website and like contracts in place. So they'll start.
It's available now.
Yeah. So the idea is the new permit would allow them to actually grow
Right.
the plant with the THC for medical purposes.
So right now, it's just a processing place
Right.
where they receive raw product in of some kind. And
Yeah.
okay. And do we know how they're currently disposing of waste? How is waste disposed of now?
It's all regulated through the state, so they have to. So they have to meet whatever those requirements are, and that's something else I find out and send you an email on, but I don't know. right
Okay,
off the bat.
I'd just be interested to know.
Unless
how-
Amber, did
how
you
is-
catch that during the tour? They tell you?
I don't
No?
know,
Okay.
but I'm sure once it's been processed, what's even left?
Yeah, there's really
always
not.
waste of something.
plant
There's probably some
material
byproduct stuff.
is
Yeah.
left, right, but I'm not sure that anything is left in it.
But
'Cause it-
last meeting, they seemed very willing to answer any questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious. to
It doesn't have any THC in it, so it's just basically, organic matter.
know. Right, that could be.
Yeah,
There are
compost it or
questions that
something.
I get from other people,
Yeah,
and
no, it's
I have
great.
no clue,
Okay.
so I'm just trying to get those answers.
A good questions
Right,
to ask.
yeah.
So, Morgan, you had taken an action earlier. You were going to reach out to them. Maybe you could add that question
Yeah, we'll do.
to that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other, oh, well, before we move off of that, it sounded like Morgan is confident that requiring the state code would encompass any
Yeah.
proper disposal of any waste. So, Jeff?
Yeah, my question is related to the line that's the 25% of the building square footage. I guess I'm curious, and you maybe covered this, because I know you just kind of did a brief overview, but how is that defined, and what is the building? And that's the only, that I just can say from being on the other side of some of those types of requirements, that seems like a little tricky. If
Right.
it's a huge 20,000 square foot warehouse, 25% is a lot of area. If it's a small building, 25% isn't very much space. So I'm just wondering if that, just clarification on that, because initially I'm skeptical if that is really helpful. If there's an objective we're trying to achieve, if we're trying to keep the businesses small, I wonder if a square footage cap or something is maybe easier to regulate than a 25% of a building.
So there's two things, and that's a requirement that has been in there for all retail uses. So I took the same standard and I applied it to the pharmaceutical use, because that's kind of the retail component of the cannabis
FOI
industry.
district.
In the FOI district.
In the FOI
And so
Okay.
in the FOI,
Okay.
and I think it's just the FOI, but the retail is limited to 25%. We actually put that in there to allow some retail. So if you had like Bella Lash, who had a storefront, and a few of these do have a storefront where they can sell products, it's a place for them to present products and to sell them to the customers. We wanted them to be able to do that while they still have the primary use. So that's the first reason, is the primary use of the FOI district is light manufacturing. And so we wanted to keep that use true. We didn't want a bunch of retail uses going in. And then the second reason is also kind of a safety thing as well. If you remember Coconut Cove, they've done great, but now you got tons of kids that are running around places where you have trucks and lots of trucks and some manufacturing. And so that was the idea, is trying to allow some of it, but limit it, because the primary purpose of that is for manufacturing, distribution, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was the distinction I missed. I think it's just
Yeah.
it's just for the FOI district.
Another thing that we did discuss earlier that you may not have heard is staff and the city are very open to, if someone comes in and says, we are proposing a pharmacy that's a standalone, not in the FOI district, we could revisit some of this and make an amendment if appropriate
Okay.
at that time.
Yeah. So, and one thing that we heard, I didn't share, you didn't hear this, but in speaking with one of the large franchises, they're like a medical cannabis pharmacy. They're really big in Florida, and they're starting to move across the country. I know they're coming here as well, but he told me that a lot of those don't like to be in a standard retail district. They kind of do want to be out of the way a little bit, so that their customers don't feel the eyeballs on them as they go get their prescription drugs. Because there is a stigma, and they don't want to be judged for getting their medication. So, so anyway, it's not like the worst thing, and at least with the ones I've talked to, our industrial district does work for their business purposes. So
Okay.
I think we'll be fine.
Good questions. Any other questions or comments on this before we make a motion to recommend to the council?
I make a motion to recommend to the council. I don't have the papers in front of me.
It's of ordinance 2020-13.
Of ordinance 2020-13.
Okay, that was Shan with a motion to forward this recommendation on to the council. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Jeff with the second. We'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Aye.
Anthony's aye. Tim?
Aye.
Amber?
Aye.
And Shan?
Aye.
All right. So that will move on to the city council. Will that also be a public hearing for the
Yep,
city
on the
council
23rd.
as well? So any members of the public that weren't able to come and share their thoughts today can also do that on the 23rd with the city council before this is adopted. Thank you. All right, we will continue on. That finishes up our business items. So we do have a work session, item 6.1, for the Vineyard Tree Manual. And Brian, is that you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do
great.
just a real quick intro. So Brian's been working closely with the Public Works Department. I believe Don, Chris, and Sullivan, and I believe Councilman Tice has done a lot of work on this. And so he has basically taken the comments from them and has done some amendments. I don't think it's a wholesale change, and so it's not like the whole manual's changing. It's doing an update as we saw we needed to do it. So the Planning Commission, you guys can definitely make recommendations on the manual if you'd like, but that's more of a city council policy document. The reason why we bring it to you is because it's connected to planning, and we know you guys are definitely interested in the types of trees being planted and stuff like that. So so this is more just like a work session, but go ahead.
Just have to turn on this mic here. So thanks, Morgan, for the introduction. And explaining the process of how that's been going. The actual final document I don't have just yet to be able to show you. It's over 75 pages, which I've been editing and putting into a new template actually, so we have an even nicer finished product. But I just wanted to run through and give you guys an overview of some of the major things that have changed. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, perfect. So I guess one of the first notable changes is that we've changed the title of the menu from Vineyard Tree Manual to Vineyard Tree and Landscape Manual. So it's just a more encompassing title change because it doesn't just touch on trees, it touches on shrubs and some ground cover stuff. So it's just more encompassing. All of the trees and plants have been reviewed and proven to be able to thrive in Vineyard's microclimate and in our soils. The document has been made to be more user-friendly, and what that means is that we now have an accurate table of contents. In the past version, chapters or sections that were in the document weren't included in the table of contents, so there'll be more accurate references in that part of the manual. All the plant species have been alphabetized, so if someone wants to find or is curious about a specific plant or species of some sort, they'll be able to easily find it because it's alphabetized. All the images and the sources have been cited, so if they want to maybe find out more information about that specific plant, there'll be a web resource that they can go to and see if it provides more information. There were some minor spelling issues in the document that have been corrected, and Amber pointed out another one, so there might still be a few more that need to be corrected, so I need to do a final run through and just make sure that everything's looking good. Some of the images of the trees were incongruent, so they were showing trees that weren't actually that kind of tree species, so now those have been corrected and they show an accurate representation of that species. The tree classification system was changed from, so before it was listing trees as class 1, class 2, and class 3 trees. That's been changed to say small, medium, or large trees. So kind of a basic change, but it's important to note that. The manual does continue to describe evergreen trees, decorative grasses, decorative shrubs, and ground covers. Sorry. We've updated the list of prohibited trees, and all the trees explain the following categories or characteristics: shape, zone, mature height, canopy size, and unique features. We've updated the list provided at the end of the manual that lets the reader know where there are nearby retailers that they'd be able to access those tree species or plant species. An administrative section has been added that explains who has the authority or under what circumstances who's got the authority to make changes to the manual. And basically, I'll just read this one word for word so you guys know exactly what it says. It says, in consultation with the Public Works Department, the city engineer is authorized to make minor changes to the manual. Any significant changes must be authorized by the city council. And then also it says all public property must follow these standards of the manual, and private property is only encouraged to do so. Do you guys have any questions about that?
That was a question I was going to ask. So even like a prohibited tree or something, someone could still plant whatever they want on their own property, but major developments and things that the city's involved in running would need to follow this manual.
I think so, right, Morgan?
Yep,
I think
exactly.
that would be
Exactly.
correct.
Was-
Yeah.
What about for street trees, if people plant those themselves?
Yeah, they have to follow the manual.
This is for that?
Yeah, because your park strip is considered public. We do have a couple private streets in the city, but for the most of them, they're public, so they would have to meet the manual.
Yeah, I think this next portion would clarify that question. It says, trees not listed in the manual must be submitted for approval by the Public Works Department / Urban Forest and Landscape Committee.
Okay. But a backyard tree, something like that, people,
Yeah.
I mean, they can follow this, that'd be great, but
Right.
they're free to plant whatever they'd like.
Yeah, it was one of those things we didn't want. Adopting this gave us a lot more control over our trees.
that's good.
But we didn't want to be overly controlling of
Yeah,
private
I
property.
don't think the
Yeah.
city should be in the business of
Yeah.
policing people's backyard trees.
That's right. Someone wants a Chinese elm, then that's on them.
That's right. There's a section titled distances from the curb and sidewalk for trees. That section states that those distances will be in accordance with the Vineyard Special Zoning District Code Section 03.14, and that's the downtown, the Vineyard downtown or town center. So we just wanted those to match. We didn't want the downtown code to say something different than what the tree manual is saying. So those now coincide. Those are matching. We updated the section distance from street corners and fire hydrants, and you'll have these updates to see more in detail soon. And then the city shall have the authority to remove dead or diseased trees or on private property, and the cost of removal will be on the owner. And then lastly, do you have any questions about that?
Yeah.
So why would the city have the authority to remove dead trees from private property, but we don't have the authority to tell them what to plant? I'm not sure I understand the difference.
I'm not sure I know the answer to that.
Is it only if
actually.
it's like a hazard or something?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, 'cause I can just imagine.
I just don't wanna peek.
Maybe
I don't
my
wanna
tree
speak for-
dies. The city comes in and removes it without asking me, and then gives me a bill like that. That's not going to go over well with anybody. So
Yeah, I mean, I would assume if there's a tree that's going to compromise overhead wire, we don't have a lot of those, or if it was,
Or if it's over a sidewalk or
blocking
something.
a sidewalk, yeah,
But maybe that ought to be clarified as conditions that the city would then
a little more
do
meat
it.
to that.
or there's a
I'll
process
make a
like
note of
a
that.
notification. And
I'm gonna ask
agreement.
maybe Sullivan or Chris or
Yeah,
Don
wording.
if
And you wake up and your tree's gone.
if one of you guys know kind of the purpose behind that. Is that are we on point here?
I'll make a note to clear
My
that.
opinion is it would be for those located in the park strips only.
Yeah, but that's
That's public, so we'd be able to do that anyway. But
One thing, Morgan. Can you hear me, Morgan?
yeah, absolutely.
If you have a diseased tree that could possibly impact other trees in the city, it's imperative that you try to limit that. So having diseased trees, even on private property, that could possibly impact a whole lot of public trees would be one reason why you would be able to go in.
Okay.
And so that kind of wording could be added.
Just to
Yeah.
have to have a
Yeah, like a-
nurse involved in that
Yeah, like a-
process.
Okay.
Like we would do with other things and give them an opportunity to take care of themselves.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, well, I'll Brian work with engineering
Yeah, like a
on
list of
some
things.
on some
If
better
it's,
wording for
you know,
that section.
If public safety or public infrastructure.
Well, the
is impacted
sidewalks
or
and,
yeah,
all that.
disease tree. Yeah, I think we could call out a few things. So.
Okay.
But I definitely like they need to,
Morgan, the other thing, this is Chris, the other thing that you mentioned about the overhead wires and stuff, I think that you just need to say that we need to conform with any easement restrictions. So, overhead wires and stuff like that, most of the time you're falling into a situation where you're within Rocky Mountain Power, and they have their guidelines based on their easements, and they will come in and cut your tree whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
If it's encroaching in on their wires.
That's a good point. Yeah, we'll fine tune that a little bit.
Okay. Thank
Yeah.
you. Jeff.
Yeah, we'll fine tune it. Exactly.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, got everything.
Yeah, so though, one last thing, some aesthetic changes are being made to the manual. Like I said, there's going to be a template overhaul. It'll look a lot nicer. It'll also be more matching to the branding that we have currently for all city documents. The images, the past manual had a lot of blurry images that you couldn't really tell what was, you can see some of the details. Now all the images are in high resolution, and it's just more clear and more defined. And yeah, I think that's all the major.
Did you change the name on it too? Was the name broadened? What is it? What's the official name?
The official name is the Vineyard Tree and Landscape Manual.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
This will be really helpful for the city and for big developers coming in on projects to know very clearly what's expected. So there's some uniformity. And
Yeah.
I like that. That's good.
So,
Yeah.
Brian, if you could share with the planning commission the draft document, so they have some time to review it. Or what we'll do is actually when he gets the final draft together, he's still fine tuning that. It's going to go on the October 14th meeting with the city council. But what we can do is when you send it to the city council, send it to the planning commission as well. And then
Okay,
I know
perfect.
Amber is all over this, but if you guys want to dig into it and provide comments, try to do it at least a week in advance of the meeting, so we can, like by the 7th, to give Brian some time to incorporate those in.
I have some comments now, Brian.
Awesome.
Let's
Yeah,
hear
If you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'll do my best.
Add the scientific names. That's particularly important for developers if they come from out of state. Some of these names are actually used for other trees in different
okay.
places. Morgan, do you recall when I shared that article in the group about male trees dispersing pollen? And since they're
Yeah.
the only ones planted,
Yeah,
it's
we have
become a problem?
It was a link to an article, isn't it?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I think we talked about it, but I know a lot of these are restricted to male trees. So we may want to look into that. We don't want, pollen coating the city yellow. Maybe we do, I don't know. And is there a minimum planting size for shrubs and stuff in there? Or is that somewhere else?
In the landscaping chapter, I believe it's a 5-gallon shrub is what's called out for the minimum planting.
Yeah, I know I'd seen it somewhere.
But I don't know if we have that in the tree manual. The tree manual is kind of on top of the landscaping
that.
chapter. But
Okay.
do you have a suggestion of what a good minimum would be?
Just smaller is actually easier, more
Really?
adaptable, and it will actually catch up
Okay.
within a few years.
If you could maybe provide Brian an email with like a recommendation of because if you actually have a standard that we could put in there, it'll help guide it a little bit more.
And then I'm just going to say I like what's been done with what I see. I don't recall seeing a patchy plume and fern bush in there, so I'm very excited about that. But I like the changes that have been made.
Cool. Thank you.
Good, yeah.
I have just a question. I really like the concept of having retail sources listed where people could go and find these, but I'm wondering if we're opening ourselves up to some criticism. By doing that, it could be seen as a favorable thing for some retailers, and if I'm not listed in there, and even though I'm 2 blocks further away from what would normally be nearby, or if I start carrying a species that I didn't carry before and nobody knew that, So I'm just wondering, even though I think it's a useful concept, I'm just wondering if we really want to make that part of our manual.
That's a great.
That's a good point.
Great
Let's
point, yeah.
let's think about that. I think that was something from Tice. He wanted people to understand where they could go to get these, because we do get the comment, well, I can't find that anywhere. So he wanted to kind of help direct people to where those were
I think it's a
at.
helpful thing, but I'm just wondering if we're opening ourselves up for.
We're treating
criticism.
one better than another.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll bring that up with them.
To
with
add to
Tice.
that, Morgan, Tice did research, and the retailers that he researched had most of the trees that we selected. But because this document is going to be on the city website, I don't know why we couldn't add retailers, to that at any time.
Yeah. And that could fall under a minor amendment too, where the city engineer would have the authority to make that change. It wouldn't have to go through city council.
Yeah, I would, Morgan, this is Chris, I would think that maybe you leave a clause in there that allows someone to petition maybe another type of tree if they can prove that it does work or falls into the guidelines. Maybe we didn't get every tree that'll work great in Vineyard. Maybe there's still another one. So if they can provide the evidence that we can approve it.
I think we do. Isn't that a carryover from before, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the city engineer has the authority to hear requests for trees that meet the criteria but aren't specifically listed.
Yeah, because I think that's important, because there's
Yeah.
always development going on in hybrids and things like that. And just because something's not listed doesn't mean that the hybrid wouldn't work here.
Yeah. Yeah. So we definitely got that. So someone could petition the city engineer and provide all the facts of the tree, and then the engineer can make the final decision on that.
Is there any guidance in there? This is more for city, where I know that in some places we've got small little strips of grass, like even shorter than like what a lawnmower would go over. Like, do we have guidance on, if it's less than 2 feet, maybe do rocks or bark or something like that? Is that in the manual? I haven't looked it over, but
We have a section that shows what are the best conditions in which or to plant a tree, or how you should plant it. And I think some of that may be stipulated in there. But maybe it's something that if it's not in there, then we could consider adding that.
yeah,
for
and I don't
sure.
want to be overly prescriptive with it, but I just know in some places along trails I've seen it's like almost laughable that someone had to run irrigation water there and then has to maintain it.
For
And
2
it's,
feet.
we're talking
You make a very
inches.
good point. I think that should definitely be
That's a
in
good
there.
point. Yeah, let's look at that. We've discussed that, but I don't know if it made it to the manual. So we can talk about that as a group.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah.
Brian, for
Yeah, you guys will really
engineering
like
and
the finished
Brian
product, I think.
did it all. They
That's good.
did a great
Yeah,
job
we're-
with it.
Yeah,
So
keep moving forward with this. This is good.
cool.
Any other questions during this work session for Brian, or things you'd like to see included? Okay.
Great, thanks.
All right. We will move on then to item number 7, commission member reports. We'll just run through. Jeff, do you have anything to report on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Tim?
No, thank you.
Amber?
Yes, just briefly. Morgan, I talked to Morgan about this, was it yesterday, the golf course?
Yeah.
They have wetlands over there. And the Native Plant Society was saying it would be a good place to gather seeds from wetland plants that are native. So hopefully we're going to be getting that arranged. Morgan, did you get that arranged?
Not today. No,
Okay.
I'll reach out to Jake Holden.
No, it's fine. But yeah, we're going to take a couple of people over there. Hopefully, it'll be a good learning experience and gathering experience. And so if you guys want to know about that, to join,
Yeah, keep us
let
posted.
me know.
Yeah,
I have never gathered seeds before.
that'd
so.
be a fun.
They come in packages from the store, so
It'd be a
for
fun
me.
field trip.
Yeah. Shan, do you have anything to report?
I don't, thanks.
Okay. All right. I don't know if we're having a staff report in the next one, so we're just doing it once a month. But Morgan, is there anything pressing that you'd like to share? Or
nothing.
Don, Sullivan, Chris, any of you guys?
I'm okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I do make a motion that we adjourn this session.
Tim with the motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
Jeff with a second, and we'll do a roll call. Jeff?
Aye.
Anthony, aye. Tim?
Aye.
Amber?
Aye.
And Shan?
Aye.
All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thursday of October.
That sounds correct.
Even though we have 5 Thursdays this month.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, so the 5th Wednesday, we won't have a
There, you don't have to be.
October.
Well, sorry about the screw ups. It's the hybrid meetings are the hardest. If it's either one way or the other, it's super easy.
Well, so you may have missed this too. I'm just gonna plan on coming, because Pam said there's a whole process if we don't have someone physically here.
Yeah.
That we need to
I'm
follow
texting
since we're
Jake
not
right now.
currently in